Well, this won't come as much as a surprise to you. More and more people are watching video content online. And also, not surprisingly, TV cable companies are increasingly nervous about their future. Some companies that appear to be gaining steam are those that successfully stream. Mark Niu joins us live from the Silicon Valley to give us more insight on the hot market for streaming media players.
Mike, streaming media is video content that comes from the internet. The big question is, who exactly are the competitors in this space? First, there are content providers who are starting to provide streaming services of their own. Then there are the cable companies who provide what's known as video on demand, or VOD services that can be viewed on mobile devices. Even TV manufacturers themselves, like Sony, are starting to embed streaming services into their smart TV sets. And finally, there are the set-top box makers who are seeking to deliver a completely different experience. Choices galore in the search for a streaming media device. But even as the U.S. market grows increasingly crowded, two players have risen to the top. Apple leverages its iTunes ecosystem to deliver content worldwide, having sold an estimated 13 million Apple TV boxes in more than 100 countries since the device was released in 2007. But a small company in Northern California called Roku is turning up the heat, offering more than 800 channels and having sold 5 million streaming media players primarily in the U.S.
They have a very affordable box. Their user interface is very decent. So if you combine lower price and good experience, they could do well.
Sebastian DeGrande, managing director at the business strategy advising firm Boston Consulting Group, says the device itself isn't the most important factor, but rather the content.
I don't know that Roku necessarily has the most, but they've certainly done a good job of aggregating from multiple providers and positioning themselves as a third party that is willing to put everybody's content online and who doesn't feel threatening to the content owner as someone who's going to either extract too much value from the service provision to the consumer, or that is going to bias towards one content provider or another.
But a new competitive threat is rising: smart TVs that embed internet content delivery services.
If you look at the volume that a Samsung can drive in the TV space, all those TVs are going to become a streaming device. Roku is probably going to try to get into the TVs themselves.
And the channel stores where
The person with the answers to how Roku plans to adapt to a changing market is CEO and founder Anthony Wood, the man who also invented the digital video recorder. Roku is off to a hot start this year with a recent injection of $60 million, which includes investments from mega media companies like News Corp, British Sky Broadcasting, and Hearst Corporation. Roku also recently began selling its devices in Canada, the United Kingdom, and Ireland, and more international plans may be on the horizon. I sat down with founder Anthony Wood to find out how Roku has managed to rise above the competition and what its plans are for the future. I began by asking Wood how Roku has fared so far this year.
we're doing great. In the United States, if you go to a retailer like Best Buy or Walmart, they'll have a streaming player section in the aisle, and there's probably 10 different products in that streaming player section, but literally 90% of the boxes sold are Apple TV and Roku, and we split the market roughly half and half, roughly 50-50 with Apple TV. So Apple's our main competitor, but we sell roughly the same number of boxes they do. We just passed 5 million boxes sold, and last year we streamed over 1 billion hours of content. So our products get used a lot.
You provide sort of a content medium, something that delivers content. A lot of analysts might say that it's something that could be easily copied. What makes you stand out?
It's very difficult to copy the Roku experience because it's more than just a product. It's an operating system. It's an operating system for TV, and there's a whole ecosystem. Just like there's ecosystems around Windows and Android and iOS, there's a Roku ecosystem with developers. We have over 800 channels of content on our box, adding 1 or 2 new channels a day on average. The other category, which is everything except Roku and Apple, is actually declining. It used to be 16% of the market a couple Christmases ago. Now it's 10% of the market. So other is going like this, and the reason is pretty simple. Every day your Roku player gets better, and other doesn't get better. For example, we just added search as a new feature last Christmas, where you can type in a movie or an actor or a director, and it'll show you all the channels on Roku where you can find that movie or actor or director.
It seems that a big part of your business is being able to secure content. What's the trick to getting all these people on board that are actually going against each other?
For the larger companies, larger content brands who we do generally have business deals with, one of the advantages of Roku is we're independent. So a lot of the big guys, maybe they don't like Google because Google has different positions than News Corp on many issues, or maybe they're a little bit worried about getting too closely aligned with Apple or Google. Because Roku is smaller and we're not. I think we're politically more appealing than many of the larger companies as well. It's also a big part of our success is being inexpensive. So our boxes are very inexpensive, and that results in consumers buying them easily. It's an impulse purchase, and that gives us scale. And scale, of course, is really important.
At this moment in time, are you profitable?
We're not profitable. We're investing. We view this as a huge land grab. That there's a huge market in becoming the operating system for TV. It's a very valuable position. And so we're today primarily focused on scale, expanding the scale, getting content, and building our brand. And doing that in a way we're not losing huge amounts of money, but we're not focused again on being profitable, although we do of course have a plan to become profitable.
$60 million from News Corp, B-Sky B, and Hearst. What does that deal mean for Roku?
Yeah, we raised $60 million. We've raised, the company Roku has raised, over its 10-year history, has raised a total of about $140 million. So that 60 was a big piece of it. They understand that distribution of television is going through this big change, and it's moving away from traditional distribution, over the air and cable, and it's moving towards internet distribution.
But this $60 million was not for the box devices we're talking about, right?
Right. This $60 million was primarily focused on expanding our service and our OEM business. So becoming the operating system for TVs and growing our service business.
That's an interesting point because there's a lot of competition coming in from, say, Sony or Samsung with their smart TVs. Are those smart TVs a threat to what you do here?
We think there's a huge opportunity that being a smart TV is becoming a standard feature of television. It's just like you can't sell a television unless it's high def anymore. Fairly soon, you won't be able to sell a television unless it's got internet streaming built in or a so-called smart TV. But if you look at the market today for televisions in the United States, you can kind of segment it into three tiers. You've got the Korean brands, which are now the top-selling brands like Samsung and LG, and you've got the Japanese brands, which used to be the top-selling brands, but are now, frankly, a mid-tier brand. And then you've got a lot of the new Chinese brands or American brands whose product is being built by Chinese companies. And that's actually the fastest growing part of the markets. And so working closely with Chinese ODMs for the US market is really our focus, like really focusing on this transition that we think is going to happen where the brands of the future are Chinese brands.
Now, some people predict that the streaming media set-top boxes will soon go away as more people buy smart TVs that embed online content delivery systems. Wood doesn't think that's true. His belief is that you don't buy a new TV that often, maybe holding on to it for 6 to 8 years, and eventually it gets outdated. To him, the easier way it gets to latest technology and high-quality content is updated regularly, is to buy an inexpensive streaming media box for well under $100. In a way, it's kind of like upgrading your phone. Mike.
Interesting. Mark Niu, live for us in the Silicon Valley. Thanks so much.